A decision from the United Methodist Church sent shockwaves through the LGBTQ community as it upheld its same-sex marriage ban. The church also added harsher penalties to clergy who officiate them. The vote happened just this past week. It has the pastor of the largest congregation here in the metro speaking out against the decision and hinting at a possible split from the church. We've got 41 Action News reporter Nick Starling here in studio. And what's the reaction from the members of these congregations?
Dia, almost everyone we talked to was not for this vote. They were actually shocked by it. And when it comes to whether or not this church should leave, they're not united on that front.
The view that gay and lesbian people will not be fully welcomed in our churches and treated as second class has no future in the United Methodist Church and in many churches.
That's Pastor Adam Hamilton's message to this room full of inquiring minds at the United Methodist Church of the Resurrection in downtown Kansas City. This is the first gathering since the 53-47% vote that banned same-sex marriage in the church.
I was working against the policy that I felt like was a regressive policy.
The vote also puts in new rules for punishment, including a financial penalty and excommunication from the church for those who violate the policy. Many in this room are gay and lesbian.
Being part of the LGBTQ community, I felt very isolated and personally hurt by things that were voted on.
We believe in following Jesus, and we think that our faith is compatible with Christianity.
Why the vote happened this way, Hamilton describes as because the growing areas of the church, like in Africa, are far more conservative than here in the U.S., where church attendance is dropping. So he's weighing his options. One could be to separate from the church.
I think it's more possible than I ever imagined that there would be a split. I have literally hundreds, maybe thousands of text messages, tweets, others from folks in other churches across the country saying, we've got to do something different. This is not okay.
It's a decision weighing heavy on his congregation, too.
I feel like conservatives have a place in the church, too, so I don't feel like division is what we need.
It would be kind of like a divorce. We'd have to split up property and people would go in different directions, and it would be a painful process.
It should be a place for everyone, and if you can't have a church with people on opposite ends of an opinion, it's not an open and inclusive environment.
But whichever way the church decides to go, they'll rely on their faith to get through this.
God will move us in a direction that we need to go.
And besides separating from the church, Hamilton says they can withhold their dollars from organizations that were for this ban. They'll likely discuss this at their next annual conference, which is in Minneapolis in 2020. Reporting live in studio, Nick Starling, 41 Action News.
Thanks, Nick.
Methodist congregations nationwide are reacting today to a vote to ban gay clergy and same-sex marriage.
It's stirring an emotional debate that could split the United States' third largest faith community. 9 on your side's Natalie Tarangeli spoke with a local pastor about the decision, which has some progressive church leaders considering leaving the denomination.
For 50 years, the motto at St. Francis in the Foothills United Methodist Church has been choose love.
Sometimes at kind of in an alone space where no one else was, as we stood up for people who were rejected, pushed away, hated.
Pastor Jim Wiltbank says love continues to be the hallmark of this church, even after nearly 900 United Methodist delegates from all over the world tightened their stance Tuesday on LGBTQ members. The General Conference voted for the traditional plan, opposing same-sex marriage and openly gay clergy members. The decision, Pastor Wiltbank says, raises a lot of questions.
Is it good for us to stay together if we don't want to stay together? And are our hearts still searching for each other, or have we turned away from each other too far?
The president of the Council of Bishops released a statement that reads, in part, "Despite our differences, we will continue to work together to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world and share God's love with all people." Some parts of the traditional plan were ruled unconstitutional, so it's not yet clear what will become part of the church law. With the decision, Wiltbank is questioning whether or not he can continue as a Methodist pastor. He says St. Francis is a reconciling church with a third of members part of the LGBTQ community.
So I want to provide a space where they can say, we're together, you're not alone. Let's celebrate that there is good in the midst of all this struggle that's there, that you don't have to walk all by yourself.
Any changes that come with these new rules won't take effect until New Year's next year. Some opponents of the traditional plan say they're hoping the International Church takes up the issue again at next year's General Conference. Natalie Tarangeli, KGUN 9 on your side.
A denomination is divided. Today, Channel 9 found a rainbow flag hanging at a United Methodist Church. Some there are upset by a decision by church leaders worldwide to strengthen a ban against gay marriage and gay clergy. The United Methodist Church is one of the largest denominations in the country, with nearly 500,000 members in the Carolinas.
South Carolina reporter Greg Suskin spoke to local pastors today as they wrestle with that decision. Greg?
Yeah, and I've learned it's really hard to overstate just how big of a struggle this has been for this church, and many are now concerned that the United Methodist Church may not be so united anymore after this vote. They continue to ban on same-sex marriage and gay clergy. A new decoration hangs outside Aldersgate United Methodist Church on Celanese Road, a rainbow flag.
God told us to do two things: love God, love each other. It's not hard.
Lifelong member Sherilyn Brewer hung it there. She says despite her denomination's decision not to change its position on LGBTQ issues, not everyone agrees.
We want people riding by to know if you're looking for a church that will open their arms to you, this is where you want to be.
In a close vote last night in St. Louis, the United Methodist Church decided it will keep language that says the practice of homosexuality is not compatible with Christian teaching. The church secretary here says she hoped for something different.
I don't understand why gays should be treated any differently than heterosexual people.
There are tears in my eyes from my denomination right now.
Steve Haller pastors the church and called the decision heartbreaking.
We're called to love everyone from God down to our enemies. Name someone who doesn't fit that list.
The conference was held to deal with this single issue. Joe Long oversees nearly 70 United Methodist congregations. He says the decision was made after respectful debate and prayer, and the message of the church hasn't changed.
All people are of sacred worth, created in the image of God.
And several people I talked to today told me that if this vote had only been of United Methodists here in the United States, it likely would have come out differently. But this was a worldwide vote with many differing views on homosexuality, and that made the difference. Scott?
All right, Greg Suskin for us tonight. Greg, thanks. There are talks among United Methodist churches of a possible split in the denomination. Other denominations have been in similar situations. The Presbyterian Church has split, and congregations have broken away from the Episcopal Church as well. A recent study by the Pew Research Center found that 60% of United Methodist Church members believe homosexuality should be accepted. 32% say it should be discouraged. It's more even when it comes to the belief in same-sex marriage. 49% said they support that. 43% oppose it.
New tonight, a church divided. This after a vote by the United Methodist Church strengthened its position to ban same-sex marriages. ABC Action News reporter Michael Paluska with a reverend tonight who attended the conference in St. Louis and just got home.
A Methodist pastor here in St. Pete already fighting back, putting this sign right in front of his church for everyone to read, apologizing for that decision. His message: he will always spread love, not hate.
Yeah, we're not leaving.
Allendale United Methodist Church Reverend Andy Oliver standing firm in his beliefs.
If the conservative faction of our church, which is a very small minority, especially here in Florida, wants to come after me or my people, they'll have to rip us out of these pews.
At Tuesday's gathering in St. Louis, nearly 900 delegates of the Methodist Church voted to continue a ban on LGBTQ people serving in leadership roles in the church and a complete ban of same-sex marriages. Oliver telling us that decision sends a clear message of hate.
If worse comes to worse and this traditional plan were to pass, Allendale will continue to officiate same-sex weddings. We'll continue to have gay and lesbian people in the pulpit right behind me.
Oliver has only married one couple inside his church, but he vows they will not be the last.
The church that was represented by the delegates in that room isn't the church that I know. Continuing to resist discriminatory laws that are passed by our church and practice the way that Jesus taught us.
Oliver knows he's putting himself at risk, but says he will not give up on his congregation that need him now more than ever.
If you identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, or queer, God loves you, you are worthy, you are beloved, and that we can't be church without you.
In Pinellas County, Michael Paluska, ABC Action News.